Greetings, YouTube. This review shall contain spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie Up yet, stop watching now. Okay, anybody still here? You don't seem to care about spoilers. So this last Sunday, my wife and I went to go see the new Pixar animated film Up, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. It's of course up to the standard high quality that Pixar has done in the past. So the visuals were pleasant from beginning to end, and I actually thought that in quite a few scenes that the whole concept that I was watching the animated film really kind of disappeared in many ways. Especially when I was dealing with Carl Fredricksen, the main character, the grumpy old man. I really began to see Ed Asner, his voice, more than I saw Carl. It's a really nice translation of his voice into a visual image. It didn't hurt the fact that Ed Asner is, in fact, a grumpy old man. This film is a tearjerker. You will cry. My wife was crying on and off throughout the film, and I cried a couple of times. In the first 15 minutes were just beautiful. Not necessarily visually, because, again, the film was good visually all the way through, but the writing and the blocking and just the way it was put together really conveyed Carl's early life, his childhood, how he met the woman he would eventually marry, their dreams of adventure, their dreams of having children, which they couldn't, their home, their life together, and eventually her passing. And it really, to me, made me connect with Carl. And then you discover that his house is the last house in an entire block that's being turned into some kind of industrial or office space or something. It's not really detailed. It doesn't really matter. Everything around him has been destroyed except for his house, and they're putting up this huge building behind his structure. This kind of thing has happened in real life, and sometimes the big little guy wins, and sometimes the little guy doesn't. And Carl, of course, is not happy about this. He sees this attempt to remove his building, his structure, as an attempt to wipe away the memory of his wife, because he connects this house with his wife. It's her. He constantly refers, when he has quiet moments, he speaks to his wife, Ellie. He's talking to the house itself. And there isn't any magical aspect about this. It's just that his connection in his mind between Ellie and his house is complete. And there's a moment when he has a tussle over a mailbox because someone's backed a truck into it. And he freaks out. Someone's hurt the mailbox. In his head, someone's hurt Ellie. And Carl smacks the guy with his cane, causing an injury. Bingo. The corporation now has an in to have him declared incompetent and sent away to an old folks' home so that they can then raise his building. But Carl has one trick up his sleeve. He used to be a balloon salesman. He used to sell balloons in the local zoo. So he straps enough balloons to his house and takes off. Which is, of course, the title of the film, Up, and the key to the whole idea of going on one last adventure. And for Carl, it's a one-way trip. He doesn't ever expect to come back. What I found interesting is this first 15 minutes, the montage, the encounter with the corporation, the attack, the court appearance, and then his eventual escape, could be taken as a metaphor for aging, senility, delirium, and eventually suicide. Carl gets away. In the film, he gets away in a house that flies because it has balloons strapped to it. But of course, that can't work. But it can be a metaphor, at least to me, for a person that escapes because he chooses his own death as opposed to one in an old folks' home. But from that point on, it becomes pure adventure. A Boy Scout type kid ends up getting pulled along because he was underneath the homeowner's porch when the house lifted off. They eventually encounter a talking dog, and the dog talks because it has this high-tech collar around its neck that allows it to convert its thoughts into speech. Now, yes, this is far-fetched. But the film wanted some droogs. It wanted some mooks, some low-level threat to the characters that wouldn't be people, because let's face it, the main characters are a man in his 80s and a small child. So by making them dogs, literally low to the ground, shorter than they are, you visually have that aspect. Yes, they're dangerous, but they're not overwhelmingly dangerous. They're smart enough that they can outthink them in numerous scenes. If they had been people, it would have been much harder to do. Even a single man, adult man, in his prime, would have been able to kowtow Carl and the Boy Scout. So yes, there are anthropomorphic dogs in the film. They do things that dogs cannot do. And I understand why they did this. And some people have a problem with it. And I can understand why some people have a problem with it. It is a little disconcerting. But remember, this is a film where a house gets lifted off and floats away because some old man straps balloons to it. Not going to happen. But the trip is so enjoyable. And the scenery is so wonderful that when they finally get to South America. And it's scenery that looks very real, because the type of geologic structures that they see down there of the stone pillars in South America, I don't remember what they're called, are real, and they're quite fascinating. To me, just as interesting as the islands that Darwin discovered in the Galapagos with all of their individual little life forms on them. These pillars thrusting out of a valley floor are the same way, isolated little ecosystems that each have their unique life forms on them. I've seen documentaries about them. They're fascinating. It's a really nice choice because it's not something that most people have ever seen. But if you like Pixar animation, and you like a tearjerker, and you want a interesting, fun film that, of course, is going to have a positive ending, but still has a certain level of depth to it, I recommend Up.